What's up, gamers? If you're new here, hello, I'm Kenneth, and I'm an indie game dev. I worked on Halo Infinite as a gameplay engineer for about 2 years before I left to start my journey as an indie dev, and I've spent the last year or so entering game jams and doing small projects and just spending some time working on my pixel art, just trying to improve my skills as an indie dev. And recently I've had this strong itch in the back of my mind that it was time to get started on a bigger, longer project. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, but I never really felt like I was ready until now. And even now I don't feel like ready, but I know that like feeling ready is a myth, right? If you just wait until you feel 100% ready to do something, you're just never actually gonna do it. So even though it's kind of scary to start on a big project like this, I think it's finally time for me to try it on. Now, I've had a lot of different ideas that I've loved over the years, so I actually have a lot of dream games that I could make, but I wanted to do something new and unique and adventurous and really push the boundaries, so I decided on a 2D pixel art platformer. Okay, so what I want to do is continue developing the game that I made for the Vimjam a couple months ago. I already posted a devlog about that game. I'll link it in the info card if you haven't seen it already. But to summarize, it's an action platformer called Isadoras Edge. The reason this is like a dream game for me is because I've always been hugely inspired by the Mega Man X games. And I mean, if you've been watching my devlogs, then you probably already know that. I had an idea of doing a 2D platformer very inspired by like the Mega Man X games, where you can get that upper hand and finally take victory over a really tough enemy. You know, super Mega Man style. And so I went and looked at how they did it in the Mega Man X games, because I think those games have some of the coolest boss death effects. Especially because I was very inspired by the Mega Man X games, where you do... My like favorite game growing up was Mega Man X4. I mean, I loved Mega Man X, I loved all the games, but in Mega Man X4 you got to play as Zero? Dude, he looks so cool! He got a sword? And I mean, when I was making the art for Isadora, the main character of this game, I gave her a light-colored ponytail, big old white shoulder pads. I even gave her like a 3-part slash animation without even realizing that I was being heavily influenced by my love of Zero. That guy's just like constantly hanging out in my subconscious. And another one of my favorite games growing up was Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It's one of the classic Metroidvania games, and it's also a 2D side-scrolling pixel art action platformer where you fight as a cool-looking dude with a sword. Those type of games meant so much to me when I was younger, and it's always been a dream of mine to take everything I loved about those kind of games and just put them into a game of my own. And that's where Isadoras Edge comes in. Now, this game performed really well, like surprisingly well in the game jam. I didn't expect it to place nearly as high as it did. And I got a lot of positive feedback that was, you know, really motivating for me. And a lot of the criticism and the negative feedback that I got was stuff that I either like already agreed with or wanted to change but didn't have time to. Most of it was stuff that I wanted to do and would have done if I had more time to work on the game. And that's when I realized that Isadoras Edge was basically just like a little slice of the dream game I've always wanted to make. Plus, not only am I super excited to make it, but people enjoyed playing it. So I decided that that's what I want to start further development on. If my first full game is Isadoras Edge, I'll be super happy with that. So what needs to be done development-wise? Well, I think me from the past put it best. I didn't put a whole lot of time into interesting level design. I put a whole lot of time into interesting boss fight design. Yeah, I need to put time into interesting level design. Now, I decided I wanted to approach this game from the very Mega Man-esque level-by-level design. You choose a level, you beat that level, you go to the next level, instead of doing like a Metroidvania big map. Now, I don't have anything against Metroidvania big maps. I love Metroidvania games, but one, I've never made a Metroidvania big map, and so adding that kind of unknown to the game where I have to figure out how to make a big map where it could constantly change and I don't really know all the details going into it adds a huge variable that I don't want to account for and seems like it would be a big source of scope creep. And also, because by splitting the game into level by level, I can really take the time to design each level, really focus on it, making sure it's as polished as it can be, and then get feedback and iterate on it. And I think that this process will really keep the project moving forward, and it'll stop me from getting overwhelmed, because I get overwhelmed very easily. And honestly, the advice you've probably heard from like 100 different game devs is to really focus on scope creep, because nothing kills a game like scope creep and burnout. So if I develop each level as its own vertical slice of the game where I complete that level, it helps give me a sense of how long it's going to take to make all of the content in the game, and it allows me to keep each piece of content like in check. Especially since I can think of each new level almost as like a long game jam for making a level of this game, and I've gotten pretty accustomed to working in a game jam deadline-esque format. Now, I'm thinking each level will take about a month to a month and a half to design, implement, make all the art for, and then playtest to get it into a finished state. And I'm planning on doing 4 levels for the game. That feels like an appropriate size for me, something that I can actually get done and still not be too short of an experience. So this would mean about 5 to 6 months for finishing the main 4 levels. Then if we estimate another like 2 to 3 months for making like an introductory tutorial type level, and then a grand finale stage where you go and fight whatever the equivalent of Dr. Wily is in my game. And then we can finish it off with another 2 to 3 months estimated for polishing, engine features like saving and loading, accessibility features, and then all the odds and ends like title menus and that sort of stuff. Then we're looking at a project that could take anywhere from like 10 to 12 months. So hopefully around this time next year, I'll either be close to finished or finished with this game, at least as I have it designed in my mind right now. And now with the planning and estimation out of the way, let's talk game design. Let us chat about designing the game. Now, what I wanted to do for making this game was create a set of guidelines for myself that I could follow while designing the levels, so that everything has a similar gameplay experience, and also by following a guideline, it just makes it easier for me to actually come up with good levels, as long as I have good guidelines. I had some ideas for what I wanted to include, but I didn't want to miss anything important, so I turned to Twitter to ask my game dev friends what they thought about this. And as a side note, you should go follow me on Twitter so you don't miss out on any of the interesting discussion or these kind of questions in the future. I'll put a link in the description for you. But anyway, my buddy, Brother Daniel, pointed out that what you really need to do is focus on the type of game that you want to make. You really need to know what you're making. And so, since I'm making a love letter to the Mega Man games, I decided to go and study Mega Man. And I did this by playing Mega Man 11.
This seems awfully dangerous. That's a drill to my ding-dang head. Why is this room empty? There's just nothing in this room. Oh yes, spank me, daddy. Thank you. Whee! Oh my goodness, I love him. You're my son now. Ow. Caught the egg. Note to self, Hammer Bros work, and no matter what game you're playing, you can always use a Hammer Bros enemy. Look at this job. He's like, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. I hate bottomless pits. I hate them. I don't like them one bit. Cool, game over. Thank you, bottomless pit. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Now, one thing I really like about Mega Man 11 is how each stage has its own unique set of mechanics and its own theme that complements those mechanics. And so that's what I want to do as well for my levels. Now, I got a bunch of really awesome advice from that Twitter thread. My friend Mighty Jora points out that you want to take time with your new mechanics to make sure you explore them meaningfully, whereas Sid Fish points out that you don't want to fill your game with filler content. You want to make sure each new piece of the gameplay and each new idea is like interesting or meaningful in some way. You don't want a long, boring game, you want a short, exciting one. So I want to break each of the unique mechanics found in a level into 4 different instances. First, an introduction, where you encounter the mechanic in like a safe, risk-free environment. This shows the player how the mechanic works. It's to let them know what they're getting into. Secondly, a challenge. This is where you explore into the mechanic in its logical follow-ups. It's a more challenging, more difficult version of the mechanic that you actually have to understand to get past, and there's a bigger risk of failure. Third, a twist. This is when you encounter the mechanic in a way you haven't yet. The actual mechanic itself is consistent, but the way that you interact with the mechanic to progress forward is new. This kind of forces the player to really understand the mechanic so that they can correctly subvert it for the twist. And then finally, you have an integration. This is when you combine one of the unique mechanics of the level with one or more of the other unique mechanics of the level. And it almost acts like a final exam, like prove you've mastered all of these mechanics so you can make it through the final gauntlet with all these combined challenges before you fight the final boss. And I really like this approach for designing the levels. It's not anything super new. I mean, this is basically the design pattern for Mega Man, not to mention Mario and like Donkey Kong. But I think that following this pattern really helps to make for good levels, and it gives me an easy way to know what I should be doing with the levels. Rather than making the next part of the level out of thin air and I just have to go pure creativity on it, I know that, okay, I should try to figure out a way to put a twist on this main mechanic of the level. And that gives me some constraints to work within, and you know, constraints breed creativity. Now, the other 2 things that I really want to incorporate into the levels from the games that inspired this are set pieces and secrets. Now, for set pieces, I'm talking about the really awesome mini bosses and unique areas of Mega Man and Castlevania. Like, when I think about Castlevania, I don't think about this hallway, or this one, or this one, or this one. This game has so many hallways, dude. But I do remember the hallway full of grandfather clocks that leads into the clock tower with the gargoyles that move around on a timer. Or the giant staircase that you have to ascend and is guarded by those like dragon skulls or whatever. And then the library full of books that attack you on the way to the merchant who's in the library for some reason. And with Mega Man 11, when I think about like Bounce Man stage, I don't think about all the little random robot enemies. I'm mostly thinking about the giant inflatable frog mini-boss because he is my son and I love him. And that's something I really want to tap into, making memorable and interesting mini-bosses and unique and exciting maps to explore, not just a bunch of forgettable hallways. Now, for secrets, I really love finding all the hidden armor pieces in the Mega Man X games and completing the set and unlocking new moves, so I definitely want to incorporate some stuff like that. Now, I won't do anything quite so esoteric as stand in a hole in the wall, holding up for 20 seconds, so that a magical hidden platform takes you to a new room with strong equipment. But I did love the way that Symphony of the Night hides pieces of its story elements. Now, it still told a good part of the story like the normal way with cutscenes and you talk to Maria all over the castle, but a lot of the more important details are hidden and you have to really explore into the castle and figure everything out yourself. And I really want to incorporate some of this type of storytelling where the player goes and finds out the information and pieces together the story on their own, rather than just like, you know, a pre-rendered cutscene where the characters all talk and you're like, oh, okay, that's the story, I got it. Now, I don't really have too many ideas for what I want the story to be right now. I have a couple ideas brewing around in my head, and I think they'll come together into a story, but I don't have anything figured out quite yet, so that is something that I still need to work on. But in exciting news, I already followed these guidelines that I set to design the first level that I'm going to make, which is just the extended version of like the Plague Doctor's Forest that I made for the Game Jam. It's going to be themed around the plague and like a corrupted forest with like the Plague Doctor trying to stop you from getting there. It's got a lot of cool ideas in it. I haven't started implementing it yet, but you can look forward to seeing how the design of that level goes in future devlogs. Now, I want to genuinely say thank you for watching my video up to this point. I really love having the opportunity to share my journey and thoughts with people about making games because it's really what I love to do. And if I could ask a favor of you, if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel, it would be very helpful. I really want to make content that connects to people, so I want to see if other people are excited for this series in the same way that I am. And being able to see that people watched this video, liked it, and then subscribed from it would really help me know that I'm on the right path here. And what I want to know from you is, what do you want to see out of these devlogs moving forward? I could do timeline-based updates where I show you what I've done in like a week or 2 weeks worth of effort, or I could do milestone updates where I'm like, I finished a mini-boss, or I finished these mechanics. I just want to make the devlogs that you want to see, so let me know in the comments what you want to see out of these videos. But as far as the devlog content goes, this is the end of this one. Thanks for watching, everyone. Peace out.